Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the channel. This is a dissection and breaking down Manchester United draw against Tottenham Hotspur at Old Trafford on the weekend. Manchester United took on Tottenham Hotspur at Old Trafford in what is a staggered format for this match day 21. Obviously, half of the teams will play next weekend or the coming weekend, and half of the team played the last weekend. United came into this match at the back of their drab victory against Wigan Athletic in the FA Cup. Obviously, Tottenham also went through to the fourth round of the FA Cup, and they'll play against Manchester City in the fourth round. Manchester United started this match like a house on fire. Rasmus Højlund scored a rocket of a goal, a great finish. Obviously, Rashford missed his golden opportunity before that, but Højlund took his chance well. But from there on in, Manchester United were never in the game, even though they scored another goal and took the lead again before half time. But they were played off the park with the midfield trio of Højbjerg, Oliver Skip, and Bentancur. If that wasn't humiliating enough, they were ripped to shreds with a front three of Richarlison, Timo Werner, and Brennan Johnson. And that is the state of the club and the team right now. Even against mediocre players, we are just second best. There were times in this match when players weren't tracking back, they weren't running for the team, and they weren't showing any kind of commitment to the cause. They were very selfish. Like Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford were, playing their individual game, which is obviously trash. And obviously the team suffered. We were never in rhythm. We were never in control of the possession, never in control of the rhythm of the match. The match dynamics were always against us. Obviously, if you look at the statistic, we'll see it more clearly. Even with the eye test, it was horrifically clear that Manchester United was second best at almost every aspect of the football match. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou has shown what his philosophy is, and he sticks to it, even though the level of players might drop owing to injuries or dismissals. He certainly schooled Ten Hag even in this match. The last fixture was a 2-0 victory for Tottenham. So obviously they had 3 points in that match. In this match, they were lacking quality up front, and they never took their chances, especially in the second half when they dominated, every aspect of football. They dominated the ball by a huge margin, but they didn't create too many clear-cut opportunities. And even the half chances, they weren't clinical enough. Obviously, with the like of Timo Werner and Brennan Johnson, they were never going to be clinical. And they missed the likes of Son and Kulusevski up front. In midfield, even though they were missing Yves Bissouma and Pape Sarr and Madison, they had all the ball, they had all the control. You could say in the final third, the final ball was missing or the last pass was missing, but overall in midfield and with the inverted fullbacks, they dominated the second half completely. Even in the first half, they had more of the control. In the second half, United didn't even muster a shot on target. And apart from that last chance that McTominay had, and he should have finished and we should have won that match with that opportunity, but we never had any go at their goal. Vicario had a holiday in goal in the second half, and overall we only had 2 shots on target, 2 goals. And even as a home team, we never looked like scoring, we never looked like threatening the goal. And they could have and they should have won this match at a canter, to be honest. Coming to statistic, obviously they had 64% of the ball possession. Most of it was in our half, especially from the center line Taylor box. They had so many touches in the opposition box. We hardly had any. Rasmus Højlund did score 1, but he never had another shot on goal or even off target after that. So that just showed the kind of dominance they had. Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes were as graceful as ever. Rashford had 56% passing accuracy while Fernandes had 59%. And that is a big reason why we never seem to control any game, and we are always susceptible to committing too many forwards ahead of the wall and getting counter-attacked and conceding chances, which often lead to goals. Our overall passing accuracy was in mid-70s. We had like 200 almost 250 less passes than Tottenham. Even more devastating was the fact that they were playing with the likes of Oliver Skip and Højbjerg and Bentancur, who is a decent player, and they totally dominated the ball. I mean, even the likes of Meno was stifled because he was the lone man in midfield. The likes of Christian Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes are lightweights in midfield. They're never going to track back. They're never going to win their duels. That's why Meno or any other midfielder in his position like Casemiro or Sofiane Amrabat are completely dominated in that part of part of the field, part of the pitch. They get no help from the likes of Bruno or Christian Eriksen, the likes of Rashford, who's an embarrassment for the club, for the badge, for the academy. He's mocking his own fans for criticizing his lack of effort in tracking back and being defensively aware. And he had a job to do on Porro, which he didn't. And he was abysmally exploited by Pedro Porro. It was a complete humiliation for him, for Rashford. And he was there mocking the fans for, reminding him of his duty and his commitment to the club. He had a shot on target, he scored. But apart from that, he was abysmal. He was shocking, to be honest. And the fact that he has the audacity and temerity to mock the crowd and to taunt them after what he has done for the last 5 years, to be honest, in this club with this shirt on his back, he is an embarrassment. And to be honest, it is symptomatic of the club. Top to bottom, it's complete shambles. Coming to player ratings, Onana gets another low score. Both of the goals, he was partly, if not wholly, responsible. He doesn't have any commanding presence in the box, which was one of the biggest criticism of David De Gea, and he seems to be worse than De Gea in that aspect. He has no shot-stopping ability. The second goal, I think it was his mistake. It was straight at him, and he couldn't get his hand to it. Even his distribution from the back isn't stellar in any way. The fact he lets in so many easy shots in, there is no excuse for his abject performance. And the fact that he stayed back from AFCON just to play this game, I think Tottenham really enjoyed the fact that he was in goal. And I think United suffered. I haven't seen Altay too much, but he couldn't be much worse than what Onana is doing right now, and he certainly deserves to be dropped. And I hope that Cameroon goes further in the AFCON Cup so that he can stay back and we can see the young one in goal for Manchester United. Diogo Dalot played in the right back position against Timo Werner. He was shambles again. Technically, he's better than Aaron Wan-Bissaka, especially on the ball, but he's completely clueless in terms of one-on-one defending, in terms of positional awareness. He didn't commit any major mistakes, but you knew that Timo Werner had the better of him. He was completely on toes. The pace of Timo Werner, even though he's not the most intelligent of football players, he certainly got the better of Diogo Dalot a lot of the times. Dalot did make some last-ditch headers, and he cleared one goal on one of the corners as well from the goal line. But overall, his game is so shoddy and so inconsistent, and it was another bad performance from Dalot. Johnny Evans played in the right centre-back position. I don't understand with Ten Hag. He keeps on playing players on the wrong side, and he keeps switching them in every other game. There is no consistency to Ten Hag's selection, and sadly, Johnny Evans was found out a little bit in this match. I think for the second goal, he is partly responsible. He couldn't get a tackle or interception against the midfield runner in Bentancur. I think he should have done much better on that occasion. Overall, he lacks a lot of pace at this level. He's just not good enough. He wasn't good enough 10 years or a decade before he left, and he certainly hasn't gotten better. I think it's just a travesty that we are giving Ten Hag the veto to select whatever players he wants in whatever position he wants. And I think we're certainly reaping the result for that. And I think Johnny Evans is another bad decision by Ten Hag. Rafael Varane, even though he's right-footed, playing in the left centre-back position, he was decent. He was certainly better than Johnny Evans, but he's not comfortable in that position on his left foot. He didn't commit any mistakes. He was decent in terms of covering for his fullbacks. Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Varane had better games than Dalot and Johnny Evans. Obviously, Licha came back in the second half, and Rafael Varane was moved into his more favoured right-sided centre-back position. He was decent. Obviously, he's not the most adept, and in terms of quality on the ball, he's not the most polished. But overall, he was decent. Aaron Wan-Bissaka played as left back. And he supported Rashford as much as he could. He was bombing on, going on the outside, going on the inside. Obviously, he lacks the final ball. He's just got no technique in terms of kicking the ball. His dribbling was fine. His spider tackles were there to see. Brennan Johnson didn't have any joy against him, to be honest. He had him in his pocket. Rashford were abysmal, so didn't offer him any kind of partnership in terms of building up, in terms of 1-2 passes. So a lot of times Wan-Bissaka was left on his own, even in the attacking areas. I think he did well, especially playing in a position for the very first time for Manchester United. I think he did decently. In midfield, Kobe Manu was, I think he was left for the slaughter, to be honest. He was completely devoid of any support from Christian Eriksen, who's almost a handicap. And also Bruno Fernandes, who was playing as the second striker almost in terms of the pressing structure that we employed. Obviously, Rashford and Garnacho were, shuttling inside to cover the inverted fullbacks. But I think Menu was completely overworked in that part of the pitch. I didn't think he had a good game, to be honest. Even on the ball, I just think that he lacks that bravery, that kind of courage to make that raking balls. And I think he depends. I think the whole team depends too much on Bruno Fernandes to pull the rabbit out of the hat. I think Mane should take more onus on himself and drive forward more. And I think he should be involved more in terms of creating chances and assists. And I just think he's been playing with a handbrake. Obviously, I have sympathy for him. He's so young, and playing in that position, he gets no shield, no screening from anybody. But having said that, I think I've seen more of Amrabat playing that position, certainly in terms of passing. I think for the last few matches, Kobe Menu has flattered to deceive. Obviously, people have allegiances and soft spot for a youngster from the academy, which I do as well. But we have to be honest. I think he hasn't been good for the last 2-3 matches. And I think he needs that support from a second pivot. And if the likes of Christian Eriksen have to play, they have to come a bit deeper. I think Bruno has to go out of the team just to give a chance for another midfielder to give the solidity in midfield and help the likes of Kobe Manu. Christian Eriksen was an impediment for Manchester United. He is just invisible. In these kind of matches, which are intense and aggressive in field, and there is no time on the ball. There is no space to run into in midfield, especially. I think he's just not good enough against the likes of Wigan Athletic and lower table sides who do not press and play in low block. Maybe he's an option, or he must be played in the number 10 position where there is no great onus in terms of covering spaces and defending. But in midfield, even as a pivot or as a number 8, he is a liability for the team. And against the likes of Tottenham Hotspur, who are so dynamic, he is a passenger, and United cannot afford to have any passengers on the team. Andro Garnacho was completely absent. I mean, he was completely stifled and smothered by Udogie. I don't want to use any bad words, but he was completely humiliated by Udogie, who is not much younger than he is. I think he's also 20-year-old, and he was completely decimated and destroyed by Udogie. He was actually destiny. Udogie was giving him space to run into and then covering it up and lapping it up, and he was completely destroyed, Garnacho. Obviously, we know that he is not a starter. We know that he lacks any spectacular ability in any facet of the game. He's a good option if you bring him off the bench and give him like 10-15 minutes against tiring defenders, and he can run against those tired legs. But against the likes of Udogie and the likes good pacey defenders, he just lacks any kind of arrows in a quiver to make any kind of damage. Having said that, he did produce a cross for Scott McTominay, which he should have capitalized on, and probably could have gotten the winner in that moment. So we have to point that out. Bruno Fernandes was captain calamitous again. He was hoofing the ball, 59 passing accuracy. I think is one of his better games in terms of passing accuracy, because he even gets worse than this. He even gets lower than this. Obviously, eye test enough to know that his technique is inconsistent. He knows that he cannot keep hold of the ball because he is not physically, strong enough, and he doesn't have pace enough to get away from his markers and dribble past players. So he has to hoof the ball up. He has to play like he's playing with hot coals. He has to get rid of the ball as soon as he gets it. And he's just a percentage player. And the fact that he's dominated, even in terms of creativity, by the likes of Højbjerg and Oliver Skip, it's just an embarrassment. And the fact that he's a captain and the go-to man for Erik ten Hag, it's a sackable offense in itself, and I think he should be sacked with the manager. Marcus Rashford started fine. He should have gotten an early goal, but obviously he dilly-dallied, and the defender cleared the ball, though it fell to Højlund, who scored a good goal. Obviously, he scored the second goal, which was slightly fortuitous in terms of him getting the ball from Hoyland, but it was a good finish. He had certain runs against Porro, but he lacked confidence. He knew that he wasn't. He knows that he's not good enough to play in the Premier League, especially in the top teams. And you can see that he knows that his technique isn't good enough and not consistent enough. He often runs into defenders. He runs like headless chicken, and he can't be bothered to track back. He had a deliberate role to mark Pedro Porro, but Pedro Porro humiliated him, time after time after time. He couldn't keep track of Pedro Porro. He couldn't match up to his fitness and his endurance and his intelligence. He was complaining against the crowd who was moaning because of the lack of effort and lack of running, and his celebration was absolutely mortifying. I mean, he should be ashamed. He was pointing fingers and searching the crowd who have backed him over this 5-6 year period since he's cracked into the first team, and he hasn't been good enough apart from 6 months, and he has the audacity and temerity to point fingers at the crowd. I think just for that one event, he should be completely removed from the first team setup and banished with the reserves or the youth teams. I don't think he has the character and personality to play for this club and to be the man who carries the club forward. And I think the sooner we get rid, the better it is for us. Hoyland had two pieces of quality football. One was his finish. The other was his run against Van der Ven when he produced a lovely skill and almost got past him and delivered the ball for Garnacho. But apart from that, he was completely dominated by Romero and Van der Ven. Van der Ven, who is coming back after months of injury, and he looked in pristine form. I think Hoyland was completely manhandled by the duo. You have to sympathize with Hoyland by the fact that he doesn't get any service, but his own game overall isn't good enough for this level, and I think for the Premier League as well. I think he needs a lot of work. He needs a lot of work on his strength and conditioning. He needs a lot of work in terms of his technique, especially his whole of play. He doesn't get involved in the build-up at all. I think he lacks that footballing intelligence. Even on the second goal, I think he was lucky to get the ball back to Rashford, who scored from that. But overall, I don't think he's good enough for this team right now. He had a good goal, and I thought that would give him more confidence. But he lacks a lot of what is needed at this point of time in this team and at this stage. I just don't think that it's just a matter of time and patience with him. I needs another experienced striker just to get the burden off of him and share the burden of scoring for him. In terms of substitution, obviously McTominay came on for Eriksen. He made a couple of good tackles, to be honest, to begin with. Apart from that, he's just kryptonite for our football. Every move breaks down when the ball gets to him. He had a good opportunity, a golden opportunity to do what he can actually do, which is to score goals in the box. He was free in the 6 yard box and he couldn't hit the target. It was a shocking miss, and he's just not good enough even for the things that he can do, which is to get on the end of balls in the box and score important goals. But if he cannot bury chances like that, then there's no point of having him on the pitch. He's just a waste of time and energy, and a complete nuisance for his own fans just to see him and struggle in the midfield and just stink up the place for rest of the team. Lisandro Martinez came back after his injury layoff after months of his rehab. He looked decent, to be honest. He nutmegged Brennan Johnson when he was coming hard on him, pressing him. He looked confident. He looked assured in terms of his physicality, in terms of his recovery over the injury, especially the mental part of it, because he has suffered the same injury twice in quick succession. So he looked fine from that aspect. Or even on the ball, we know that he's the best passer in the team and in the club, and he looked sharp. I think his partnership with Varane would help us certainly in terms of building from the back, especially. But it remains to be seen how good he is defensively. We certainly have seen certain frailties in his game, especially his lack of pace over the last 10 months, I think. And even though he's missed a lot of it, but there were some cracks coming into his game when he got the first injury as well as the second one. So it remains to be seen how much we are able to change defensively when he gets more game under his belt. But certainly, in terms of build-up, he'll provide a certain fillip to the team that we lacked, and we just hope that he can stay injury-free and to finish the season on a positive and just help the team at least get as near to the top four as possible. Anthony came on for Marcus Rashford in last 2-3 minutes. I just don't understand the point of it. Just bringing him on for last 2-3 minutes. I don't see any reason or any kind of logic behind it. It doesn't serve any purpose. He didn't get enough of the ball, enough time on the ball, enough time on the pitch to make any kind of difference. Obviously, he is not somebody who's brave on the ball. He is timid and weak, and he goes for the safe option. So there is no point of bringing somebody like him when you need a goal and you want to go for that final push to get that victory. So I think his substitution was redundant and it didn't affect the match in any way, shape, or form. Erik Ten Hag was again schooled by Ange Postecoglou, especially with his B team or even his C team. The likes of Skip and Højbjerg had a field day at Old Trafford. I mean, Bentancur, we know that he's a quality player, and the Uruguayan has trouble United even before today. But the likes of Højbjerg and Skip, even the likes of Timo Werner, Brennan Johnson had so much fun against us. They had so much of the ball. They were so comfortable. Pedro Porro was the man of the match. He is just on a different level. I think he was the best player technically on the field. And at this moment, I think he's one of the best right back in the league and one of the best defenders, especially in terms of he's got so many facets and aspects to his game that are quality right now. And obviously defensively he can be a liability, but he gives so much more to this team. And he's certainly been one of the cog in the wheel of this Ange revolution. I think Ange was the one that we thought we were getting in Ten Hag, and we were sold a lie, to be honest. We were completely gobsmacked and hoodwinked by the whole PR and spiel of Erik Ten Hag of bringing errors to an end and bringing his philosophy and principle and not and not sacrificing his principle even for for small margins or small gains. He has completely divorced himself from his own philosophy, or you can say Ike's philosophy. I don't think that he has a philosophy. I think he's just a small man in a big hat, and he's just not good enough for this club. I think he could do a decent job in a mid-table club, and honestly, he has made us into a mid-table club, and I think that is his ceiling. I don't think he gets any better than this, and I think it's just about ripping the band-aid off as quickly as possible. Just get an interim if you want to get first choice manager who isn't available at this moment of time, and you want to do you lay the groundwork to bring somebody of big stature and a marquee appointment as a manager. So you bring in an interim, but Ten Hag has to go. I don't see any point of keeping him. I have stopped listening to his interviews. I just don't want to hear anything out of him. I just want him to get the sack and just begin again with the new manager. I think United were fortuitous not to lose that match and to come out of it with a draw and shade points. Ange and Tottenham would be disappointed that they didn't get more out of this match. I think they deserved a win. Tottenham dominated even with the B team in their third choice midfield. They were completely in control of the match. They conceded 2 mistakes and 2 chances and scored from those chances. But apart from that, we didn't create anything. And we could have even gotten the 3 points at the death when McTominay missed his header. But overall, I don't see any trajectory of upheaval, any kind of resurrection under Ten Hag. There is no road to recovery. There is a lot of room for improvement in every aspect of our club, especially on field. I think we are worse off than we were when we appointed Ten Hag. I think he has left us in a bigger mess than he stepped into. His signings have been atrocious. Historically, one of the worst signings that this club has ever made. The likes of Anthony and Mason Mount are themselves sack-worthy. Obviously, we saw the new 25% Glazer hobnobbing with the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson, who is part of the mess that we find ourselves in. I think he's one of a big reason that we find ourselves in such a hot mess. And it was no surprise that he was, glad-handing with the likes of Sir Alex. I think Sir Alex and his coterie of, old-timers are one of the reasons why Glazers have gotten such an easy ride till now. And with Jim Glazer in, I think it's gonna continue. And the fact that there were so many lining up trying to get an autograph and photograph with Jim Glazer, it just smacks of the state that we are in as club and as fans, and we're just fickle, and just mob mentality. We're just fickle and easily manipulable, and it is for everybody to see. I could hear some Glazer out chant, but I think majority or predominantly fans have forgotten about it. They just gone on with it. I think most of them have just jumped on this bandwagon of this white British man reviving and putting back Manchester in Manchester United. I think it's just a travesty. The club is an international icon, it's an international treasure, and the fact that most of the fans, especially the local fans, are so reductive in their way of thinking and so parochial in their thinking, it's just a shame. And the fact that United are one of the most heavily and popularly supported club or football franchise in the world, it just goes against the fact that the local fans or the fans in that go to the match going fans can be so thick and brave enough, and they don't really care as long as they get the lip service. They're just happy to wallow in the squalor that has been the state of the club for the last decade. And I don't think Glazers are going to change, because they know the fans in and out. They know the pulse of this club, and especially the local match going fans, and they can easily be brainwashed into thinking that this is some sort of revolution, some sort of evolution of the club. What it really is the devil's pact. It's a collision of the devils themselves, and it's gonna end in complete ruin for the club. And it just remains to be seen that how long it takes. And I just hope that there is some light at the end of the tunnel. And I think at least on the pitch, if we see some sort of difference, some sort of action, we can take refuge in that. Obviously, United will have the winter break right now, and they'll return with the FA Cup fourth round, which won't be a tough fixture anyway. So we'll continue with our Red Resurrection and try to carry on forward in our season, and try to compensate for the lack of quality football in real life with the EFC career mode. Please join us for that. Until then, take care, do good, pray for Palestinians, all the oppressed people. Assalamu alaikum.